Points of access. With Phillip White.
In this lesson series, we describe how to build accessible content for design projects using Adobe Captivate 2017. These tips can help you to create instructional design that meets accessibility standards. Setting up accessibility settings.
We're in Captivate 2017 now. We're going to come over here to New and click Blank Project, Create. Then we're going to go to File menu, Publish Settings. See, we're under Category over here, and it says Project. Then under Project, it says Publish Settings. You want to make sure the tick is enabled here for accessibility, and you want to make sure you're not hiding the selection rectangle. So take this tick off, then click OK. Next, you need to go and save your project. And that's how you have a good, firm, solid state to start off creating an accessible project.
Dealing with text.
Captivate allows you to type accessible text using the standard slides. This is a title slide, and as it says on the screen, double-click to add title. So I type in my text, and that's basically all I have to do to make that accessible. When you want to add more slides, you come up to Insert Menu, New Slide, and choose one of these types that are already laid out for you. That's the easiest method to build accessible text. So if I come down to Content 2 and then double click to add title, and then add my captions, and so forth, you see that anything that I type in these boxes is going to be accessible. Though these can slides are very useful, it isn't necessarily the way a designer would go about their business. Most designers would probably use the insert new slide from blank and have a blank slate on which to start. They might use a shape to put a color in, say for instance for a background like this. And you see the fill color is over here, and then I can choose dark blue. Now if they want to put text on there like a heading, they could come up here to the text box, click text caption, and type in the caption, and then they can highlight the text, and over here under character they can change the color of that text, and then they can improve the size of it by changing the size, maybe a little bit larger, make it bold, and you see that the box now doesn't contain the text so that it's very visible. So what you would have to do is click on it and then drag the box so that it fits inside of it. Now if you wanted to add some bullet points for this slide, what you could do is you come back to text, text caption, and when you start off you want to come over here to the bullets and make a choice of what the bullets are going to look like, and then start typing in. And again they start disappearing, and I really can't see them. They're not going to be accessible. There's not enough contrast. So I'm going to make the box bigger. Then I'm going to select all the text. I'm going to make the text say 28 point, and I'm going to change the color of that to white, and the bullet points also turn white. But you notice that I have a spacing issue going on here, so it's centered. I probably have an extra character right here, I could do that, or possibly I might put it on the margin over here. So this box here is showing you where it's, getting its directions from. But that's how most designers would build slides. However, some people would prefer to bring in something from PowerPoint, and I'm going to talk about that next. We're going to close this project. And you see, we are back at this panel. We click on New, and then we click From PowerPoint. Create. Then we choose the content that we want to bring in. This is 8 slides. And it begins the process of pulling that in. We finally get to this screen, which is allowing us to that conversion, and you can change the width or maybe keep it the same as what it was previously. You see it says 8 slides and how to advance a slide. And in this case, because I want to have the best visual I can get, I'm going to click high fidelity, and I'm going to ignore slide duration. I just want to make that manually. And so it converts those slides. So here is the PowerPoint, and it looks really exciting and it looks good, and I can go through each of these. And the problem is, even though the content looks really good, it's not textual, it's pictures. So that will not pass accessibility tests. The instructional designers that I know would probably just retype all this content.
Setting up accessibility settings.
When you're designing slides and you're thinking about that, you should also consider the colors of your backgrounds versus the color of your text and other issues related to contrast. Sometimes contrast is not what you expect. I brought up this color contrast analyzer tool, which you can get off the web, to show you how easy it is to use. I have this PowerPoint that I'm working with right now, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to show you that you can select the foreground, which is the text, and then you can select the background, which is the circle. And you see that this looks good to me, but it passes not all of the tests, just one, that large text. So the text is the right size, but it's not the right contrast. Now I'm going to go down into another slide down in here, this particular one, and you see that the font here is all caps, and it's very difficult to read even for a sighted person. So that is another issue. Of course, the background here, the color is yellow. Again, I take the dropper, come down to the B here, and click on the white, and then clicking on the background right there, you'll see it fails all the tests. Now, I've made a lot of slide presentations over the years, and I still run into times where I think I have it right. It looks good to me, but then I run the checker and I fail my tests. So this job market training was created recently in Adobe Captivate 2017, and I want to show you some contrast issues that may be something you should look at. You have this slide title over here where it has all the different slides, and I'm going to come over here to the first slide listed, and I'm going to make sure that the purple and the gold are good, and they pass all the tests except for this ratio at level 3, which is actually compliant for most standards. Now I'm going to come down here to this bar. Since they had this gold and this purple going on, they decided to use a similar color here in their design, and you'll see that this actually fails all the tests. So when you're designing, even these elements need to be accessible. We're back in my Captivate demo file. And what I want to show you right now is how to check what your theme looks like. You can come down here to Skin Editor and you can set it to be something different. And you notice when I changed the skin, it made this bar much smaller. And if I change it again to something like Mojave, it changes the color and it also changes the focus. While we're in here, we can also independently change the play bar, this part, rather than the slide part, by coming to right here and dropping down something like that, or possibly something like this. And you see the icons are much larger and easier to see here. But what we were really talking about was contrast. So I'm going to come over here again with the tool and I'm going to click right here on the arrow, and then I'm going to click right here on the area next to it. And notice that there is enough contrast. Now let's see if the table of contents is in the same quality. So I'm going to click here, and it's awfully difficult to actually see this since it's miniaturized. But I'm going to make an attempt at it, and this would probably be the dark color, and see both of these on this Mojave with the mobile play bar are going to be accessible. Now, in the future, I'm going to talk about closed captioning. If you have audio or video settings, you'd have to add captioning.
Captioning for the hard of hearing or deaf.
Here we have a heading and a picture of one of the slides from the sample we looked at earlier. And what we want to do is we want to incorporate some text, but we want to do it orally. So we're going to add sound. It's going to be different from this heading and this information. So I'm going to come up here to audio. I'm going to import to slide, and I'm going to choose this slide verbiage. And when that opens up, you can see the sound file, and you can adjust the sound file by clicking edit. And in this case, I know I want to adjust the volume down about 4 dB, and you can listen to it. Now, if I want to add a closed captioning to this, I can do that relatively easily. First, I click on closed captioning, and you'll see down here it says closed caption, and so it has a plus over here. I click the plus, and I can paste in from my transcript what was actually said at this area, but I have to listen to it so I can know where to start the next caption. I'm just cutting and pasting from a text file.
A key component in understanding the job market in any location is to have a firm understanding of the local economy.
All right, and once I get down to local economy, I click plus again. I go back to my text file here, and I'm going to highlight the next segment right here. Oh, I'm missing this. Okay, so we're going to just do this section. Copy, Control C or Command C on a Mac. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to paste that in down here where it's set up the new caption. And then I'm listening so I can mark the next place.
What are the top industries? Who are the major employers in the region?
Okay, so it stops about right here. And then I add the next caption. And copy that. And then I am ready to paste it in. Control C, Command C on the Mac. And so as I go through this, it's easy. I just keep popping them in and listening till the end of it.
This information can give you a good feel for the types of jobs, the potential for growth, and the makeup of the local labor pool.
Okay, and need another caption here, which will be the last of the text. Copy that, and then I can close it out. And then paste it in, and then I save it. Next, going to talk about where those captions show up and how they show up. The appearance of your captions may be important to you, especially where the captions appear on your slides. You can come here to Settings under Closed Captions tab, and you see that captions are particularly centered here on the slide at the bottom, and you can change the alignment by switching it here. You can also change what font it's going to appear in right here. Now, in this case, I probably want 2 lines of text at the best, so I'm going to change the width here and drag this over about 50% like that. One little bit more adjustment. Nope. There we go. So this is where I want my caption to show up. And in this case, since I have a white background and the letters are black, it's good contrast, so everyone should be able to read it. Now, where you want to change this is on each other slide. If you have some different footer here that encumbers the text of the caption, so you can adjust it all right here. Then you click Apply, and you remember looking at themes. I'm going to close this out. Remember, we were looking at themes earlier, and I went to Skin Editor, and down here at the bottom you now see the closed captioning is going to be showing when they click this little button. And that's it for captioning.
Accessible images.
Adding images to your presentations can improve the way they look, and most people will add images to their presentation. So how do you make them accessible? Let's add an image and find out. I come up here to Media and drop in this image. I'm going to use the white tiger. Now, the size of the tiger can be controlled over here in the properties by clicking Fit to Stage. But I actually want the image smaller. So I'm going to take the corner here and drag it down, make it about this size. Now the image can be put anywhere. That's not important. What's important isn't even what you title it, unless you're going to use some programming to change the image in some way. But what we want is to make sure it's accessible. So we're going to come over here and click on this little drop down where it says accessibility, and it says auto label. Well, don't use the auto label. Click that tick off and then type in the accessibility name. And this is where you can add a description if it's important that the tiger is in water or jumping or whatever you're trying to convey with the image. If it has information that you want the person to know, you type it in here. And in this case, I just want the tiger to be labeled. So I'm going to click OK. Other type of images that you can add would include shapes. So if you have a shape on the screen that you want someone to notice, you want to make sure it has a label, just like that. Next, we're going to talk about buttons and how to make buttons accessible.
Button accessibility.
In Captivate 2017, you can create buttons that can add extra interaction within your slide presentation. Let's look at the basic creation of a button. You come to Interactions, click on Button. A button that's very plain is going to pop up on the screen. This is a text button. You're going to come over here to Properties, and you'll see it says Text Button, and the caption on the button, which is what a screen reader is going to read, is going to say button. So we're just going to call this button 1. You should note that any button that you have selected will have states. You can click on State View here, and you'll see there are 3 buttons actually, depending on what the state of the button is at the time. If it isn't being selected or clicked on, the button will look like this. If it is having a mouse on it, it will have a rollover effect, and if the mouse is clicked on it, it will look like this. To get out of states, you click Exit State here. So that's your basic button. The next button is going to be a button that is a text button at first, but you can come over here and change the text button to a transparent button. And instead of it having a label, I'm going to have it have no label, but you see it has a fill, and I can just change the opacity to 0. And then I can drag the button. I've lost it. There we go. I can drag the button to the image and lay it on top. Now I want this button to have the action of going back to the previous slide. Now this button up here, I didn't talk about the programming of it. Let's look at its action. Its action is to go to the next slide. That is your default. Every button you create will have this as a default, so you have to remember to change the action. Let's do another invisible button. We're going to come up here to Interactions, click on Button. We're going to drag that over top of this button. Change the word under Style, or the caption, to say Forward. And then we want to make the button transparent. But the word we want to stay on there. So I also have to go to the actions, and of course its default is to go to the next slide, which is fine since it's a forward button. Now let's make an image button. Same method. Interactions, button. I'm going to put it over here, and then we're going to come over to Style, change it from Text Button to Image Button. Now the image button will allow us to choose one of these right here. There are a whole bunch of these that have already been created for you that makes it easier for you to do something. So in this case, we may want a button that starts a quiz or something, and so we could click that and it drops in. And if I go to Actions, I will have to set the action to whatever I want it to do. And in this case, I might want it to go to another slide. So I'm on slide 5, and let's say I had a quiz down here at slide 11. So I'm going to go back to the buttons, slide, click on that, go to Actions, and jump to slide, change that to 11. So if this button was clicked, it would take me to slide 11. Last, you can make a button out of a shape. Let's do it. Drop this down, take any shape, draw it on the screen. This gives you the opportunity to make it colorful, but it doesn't give you the opportunity to put any text on it. That's why these invisible buttons work so well. So it says over here, Use as Button. So I'm going to click that, and then this will have to be programmed using an action. Let's say we want it to exit, and we can do that. But there's no label on this button. I have to come up here and go to Accessibility, take off the tick for auto label, and type Exit Button. If we want to give more description, we just add it down here, but in this case we're just going to click OK. And so this rectangle is supposed to be a button. It doesn't have a label, but it is accessible to someone using a screen reader. Thanks for watching this basic lesson on how to make content with Captivate 2017 accessible.